The chip mug warmed my hand, the lukewarm coffee doing little to soothe the icy knot in my stomach. Another sleepless night. Another night spent replaying the subtle shifts in Melissa's behavior, the whispered phone calls, the late nights at work. My gut churned with a sickening certainty I'd tried to deny for months. Melissa and I had been high school sweethearts, married for 15 years. We'd built a life together, a beautiful home, 2 amazing kids. The thought of it all crumbling, of the foundation cracking beneath my feet, was unbearable. But the evidence was mounting, a suffocating pile of unanswered questions and half-truths. A week ago, I'd finally succumbed to the gnawing suspicion and installed a GPS tracker on her car. It felt dirty, a violation of trust, but the alternative, living in agonizing uncertainty, was worse. Now, staring at the map on my laptop screen, the jagged red lines tracing her movements over the past few days, the truth was laid bare. The late nights at work were actually spent at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate for escape. I printed the reports, each page a fresh stab of betrayal. The regularity of her visits, the sheer audacity of it, made my blood boil. I wanted to scream, to rage, to break something. But a chilling calm settled over me instead, a resolve to handle this with a precision that would make her regret every lie. That evening, Melissa arrived home, her usual bright smile plastered on her face. She kissed me on the cheek, the familiar scent of her perfume suddenly tinged with something acrid, something false. "Hey, honey," she chirped, her voice a little too high-pitched. "Long day. How was yours?" "Enlightening," I replied, my voice flat. Her smile faltered. "Enlightening? What do you mean?" I held up the stack of printouts, the red lines screaming her infidelity. The color drained from her face, leaving her skin a ghastly white. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape route that wasn't there. "Melissa," I said, my voice dangerously low, "care to explain this?" The carefully constructed facade crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't fool me. This wasn't remorse, it was self-pity. "It just happened," she stammered, the classic, pathetic excuse. "It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything," I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been sneaking off to a motel with another man for weeks, and it didn't mean anything." She started to sob, a theatrical performance meant to deflect blame. But I was immune to her manipulations. I'd seen the truth, stark and undeniable, on those printed pages. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice tight with controlled fury. She hesitated, her lips trembling. "His name is Spencer. He's a colleague." "A colleague, of course. The old cliché." I knew then that I wouldn't just confront Melissa, I would confront Spencer, too. I wanted to see the fear in his eyes, the realization that his little secret was out. I spent the next few days gathering information about Spencer. Social media, company directories, even casual conversations with Melissa's co-workers, every piece of the puzzle slotted into place. I learned his full name, his address, his marital status. He was married, too, with 2 young children. The hypocrisy made my stomach churn. On Saturday afternoon, I drove to Spencer's house, the GPS tracker now my guide to another confrontation. His wife's car was parked in the driveway, a minivan plastered with stick-figure family drawings. The image fueled my anger. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding against my ribs. Spencer opened the door, his face a mixture of surprise and confusion. He was younger than I'd expected, with a boyish charm that no doubt contributed to his deceitful nature. "Can I help you?" he asked, his eyes flickering with unease. "You're Spencer, right?" I said, my voice deceptively calm. He nodded, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. "I'm Melissa's husband," I continued, watching the blood drain from his face. His eyes widened in recognition, a mixture of fear and guilt swirling within them. Before he could react, I stepped forward, my fist connecting with his jaw. He stumbled backward, his hand flying to his face. His wife appeared in the doorway, her eyes widening in alarm. "What's going on?" she demanded, her voice shrill. "Ask your husband," I said, my voice dripping with contempt. "Ask him about his colleague, Melissa." The color drained from her face, mirroring Melissa's reaction earlier in the week. She turned to Spencer, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "Is this true?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Spencer stammered, trying to form a coherent sentence, but the words wouldn't come. The truth hung heavy in the air, suffocating them both. I left them there, their world crumbling around them, the echoes of the deceit reverberating through the perfect suburban home. I didn't feel victorious, not exactly. Just empty. The revenge had been satisfying in a primal way, but it hadn't healed the gaping wound in my heart. The drive home was a blur. When I arrived, Melissa was packing a suitcase, her eyes red and swollen. The kids were with my parents, spared from witnessing the wreckage of their parents' marriage. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice hollow. I don't know," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. I didn't stop her. There was nothing left to say. The lies, the betrayal, the years of shared dreams, it was all gone, reduced to ashes. She left, taking with her the last vestiges of hope for a future we'd once envisioned. The house felt eerily silent after she left. I wandered through the empty rooms, the ghosts of our past clinging to the walls. The photographs of happier times mocked me with their smiling faces, a cruel reminder of what we'd lost. The following months were a blur of lawyers, custody arrangements, and the agonizing process of rebuilding a life shattered by betrayal. It wasn't easy. There were days consumed by grief and anger, days when the weight of it all threatened to crush me. But slowly, painstakingly, I began to heal. I focused on my kids, on my work, on finding a sense of normalcy in the chaos. One day, months later, I saw Spencer at the grocery store. He looked haggard, thinner, the boyish charm replaced by a weary resignation. His wife had left him, taking the kids. He avoided my gaze, his shame palpable. I felt a flicker of pity, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of the pain he had caused. I didn't confront him. There was no need. He was already living in his own personal hell, a hell of his own making. And as I walked away, I realized that the most satisfying revenge wasn't the confrontation or the public humiliation. It was the knowledge that their actions had consequences, that their choices had led them to this desolate place. And I, despite the pain, was finally free.